Content creation can be quite time consuming just because of the whole setup. Setting up a tripod, putting the camera on the tripod, setting up the lights and lighting them properly, setting up the microphone, and that can be quite demotivating when you know that you have a lot of work ahead just to record a single video. What if I told you that none of this is necessary and that I have built myself a set that makes content creation so easy that I really only have to press record and can get started straight away? In this video, I will show you my all-in-one YouTube studio on wheels, which I can easily move to any place in our apartment and produce perfectly lit YouTube videos anywhere, but of course also short form content, for example, for Instagram Reels. We will set up the whole set together. I will tell you exactly what I was thinking and how much the whole thing cost, and you can of course find all of the links to the individual parts in the video description below, so let's get started. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Marcus. I'm a freelance software developer and a content creator, and I make videos on this channel about content creation to help you become a better content creator. So please subscribe. The first and most important part of the set is not the camera or the light or the microphone as you might think, but it's actually the tripod. This thing is a so-called C-stand, which is a professional tripod that is actually commonly used on professional film sets as well. And as it's a professional tool and used on professional film sets, it's actually quite expensive and costs around 130 euros just for a bit of metal. And I specifically chose a version with wheels at the bottom so that I can easily move it around in the whole flat so that I can film anywhere in our flat, which is kind of the point of the whole set building. The second most important element to be perfectly lit everywhere is, of course, the light. And I'm using the Amaran 60X for that. The Amaran 60X is probably the most affordable professional film light for only 200 euros, which is still kind of expensive, but you'd be surprised how surprisingly bright this thing can actually get for just 200 euros. In fact, most of the times I'm not using it on the full 100%, but only around 30% is completely enough. And you can even use this thing with batteries that you can mount here on the side, but in most cases I find batteries, at least while I'm at home, pretty annoying because if the battery runs out, I have to get another one. So most of the times I actually use it with the cable and just plug it into the wall. But this of course means quite a bit more work for our set because we need a lot more cable management, since I'm not only plugging my light into the wall but also the camera, and then we need cable management for, well, only having one cable that actually goes into the wall. The great thing about professional video lights is that typically they have a standardized mount, which is the so-called Bowens mount, which the Amaran 60X also has. So you can use any light modifier that also has a Bowens mount, and I'm using a pretty standard softbox from a company called Triopo. And as you can see, I am using it with a grit in the front, which avoids spilling light to the sides. Because the great thing about a softbox is that it has very soft light, so you get a very flattering skin when filming with a softbox. But usually with a softbox you would have a lot of light spilling to the sides, and that's the great thing about the grit, that it kind of focuses the light only on a single spot, but it's still very, very soft. Next we have the equipment that I think I love the most, which is a so-called magic arm. These things are incredibly useful for basically everything, because you can simply clamp it to, well, basically anything, and then mount whatever you want on the other side, such as a microphone, a light, a camera, whatever it is. And then you can simply loosen it here, move the thing wherever you need it, and then fix it back into place, and whatever you have will stay there. And they are super sturdy, and you can put even very, very heavy items on them. And I fixed it specifically at this midpoint of my C-stand because this thing is supposed to hold the camera later, and this gives me the option to move the camera and the light up and back down at the same time. But also, if I need to, I can only move the light up or back down. And next we have, well, some random ball head. You can basically use any ball head you want. I actually dismounted this one from some old tripod that I had, but you can also buy this new. They are really not expensive. You can get them for like, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks or something. And I also already have a quick mounting system on top here, which is in my case the Arca Swiss system, which I have on, well, basically almost all of my cameras, but also different tripods, so that I can easily switch out between different cameras and different cameras on different tripods. Next we have the main element of the set, which is of course the camera, which will then later be filming me. Usually I would use my R6 for this, which is kind of difficult at the moment because my R6 is currently filming me, so I'm using my old 6D Mark II for the purpose of this video. By the way, I will also not be including the price of my camera in the full price of the build that I'll later give you at the end of the video, because I assume most of you will already have a camera that they use for their social media content, so if you want to rebuild the whole thing, you can just use the camera that you already have and don't need to buy a new one. And then the next thing, because most of my videos are actually quite strictly scripted, I'm using a teleprompter. You can also use almost any teleprompter for this. I think mine was about 50 euros, and I already have like the ring to mount it here on the lens, so I can just click it in place. And then I could put my cell phone in here, and if I would show some text on my cell phone, I could just read it here while filming my video. Next up would typically be the microphone, which is of course a bit complicated as well, because as you can see, I'm currently using it, and my new favorite microphone is the Lark M2 of a company called Hollyland. The great thing about the Lark M2 is that it's incredibly easy to use. I only clip on the microphone, I then have a second microphone here in the charging case, and then I simply have to plug in the receiver into the camera, and that's it. I don't have to complicatedly hang a boom arm or anything, but I simply clip on the microphone, and I can even move around, and no matter where I am in the room, I always have perfect audio because the microphone is moving with me. Well, and then we have to cable up everything because, as I've said earlier, I also don't want to run the camera off of batteries, but plug it into the wall as well. And I bought myself this fancy adapter for that quite a while ago, which basically just looks like a regular battery for this camera, and I can then put it into the camera, but it has a cable on it, which I can plug into the wall on the other side. And then in my case, I'm also throwing an HDMI cable into the mix, which you typically won't need, but when I'm filming at my desk, I usually directly connect my camera to my MacBook so that I can film right onto my MacBook. But usually when you're using the set somewhere in the flat, you won't need that, but I'm putting it in. Well, and then we simply connect everything to a power strip, and by everything I mean the light and the camera, which I can directly mount onto the C-stand right here with a 3D printed mount that I 3D printed myself. And then on the other side, we have another one for the power brick for the light, which we can simply put into here as well. Well, and then last but not least, I have this cable drum roller thingy that I can use if I want to film, well, not super close to a wall where I can plug everything directly into the wall, but if I need a bit of a longer cable, which I can simply screw onto here. And then we can simply connect our power strip on the other side. And then we also have to plug in all of the other stuff and do a bit of cable management, obviously. Well, and then as the very last element, as a counterweight, because of course I have a lot of weight at the top of the C-stand right now, I am putting a sandbag on the bottom here so that the whole thing doesn't tip over. Well, and then I can simply put you on here and easily move you around the flat and have any background behind me, whichever I want to have.